Welcome to the 25th anniversary of the Fantasia International Film Festival. Today it's my pleasure to be speaking with Jessie Blanchard, the director of Frank and Zed, the bloody and heartwarming odd couple puppet extravaganza that went over my heart and hopefully yours too. Welcome, Jessie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I think we should just jump right in. This movie is like do it yourself. It took at least 6 years. Like we kind of approximated that number. I would love to know kind of like the process of making the film. And I also hear you have some show and tell items you can kind of walk us through everything with.
Yeah, so, first thing was get the idea and kind of start writing. But then after that, it was like, let's make the puppets. And I really wanted Frank and Zed to be like super detailed, And so we spent, and I got him here. So we can meet him. So here's Frank. Oh, coming to life. Hi, Fantasia. So this is Frank. We spent a year making both Frank and Zed, because everything, like, for instance, if you look at the eyeballs, I don't know if you can see that there, but like just to do the capillaries, you take thread and you like unwind thread and you lay in like each capillary like one at a time. And also just getting the look, because I wanted him to be like absolutely like a monster, but also like really lovable, hopefully. And like finding that balance was like really exciting, because I mean, if you look at this guy, like, he's got like cellulite over here. And this is like raw muscle. And it was like, and it was so fun. It's like, let's just make him as gross and gnarly as possible. And how big of a challenge can we make to in the design, and yet still have the audience hopefully connect with him, and then the same thing with Zed over here. Yeah, come here, Zed. So here's Zed. Hi, Justine.
Hi. I love it.
And similarly with Zed, it was really fun. Like, you can see his teeth.
Yeah, and the cheekbones too, right? Like it's like that's such a precise detail that just makes it seem so much more alive.
Yeah, and like even like there's a bite. This is where he got bit.
Wow.
But then even it's pretty stupid on both of these puppets. Like Zed's head is empty. Like you're making a puppet where you can see into his head, because he picks and eats his own brain. And Frank has water. Well, that's where your hand should be, in a puppet. So even kind of figuring out all of those things, took about a year.
Wow.
And it was like really, really fun, but like it's just like super challenging, because you're doing all the sculpting and molding, and then there's all these like little things that pop up, like for Frank, he has this glass dome. Well, how do you make a glass dome that's like aged glass that like fits this sculpt perfectly, like fits in here, but there's enough room for liquid, and that's like a hole. That's like I think that was like 2-3 weeks, like trying to figure that out. So ended up building a vacuform machine, finding the right material, kind of sculpting what's called a buck and all that stuff. So anyways, we spent a full year just on Frank and Zed, and then making some of the other puppets. And then we did like a proof of concept where we kind of worked things out and made like a short trailer. And from there had a really successful Kickstarter. And then we launched into the film and did the bulk of the film, bulk of the shooting really in about 6 to 8 months. So it's taken a long time, but it's been a lot of life interrupted and kind of having to kind of shift gears and raise money, so that's been a big part of why it's taken so long. I wish I could have done nothing but work on Frank and Zed, but that's, not many indie filmmakers kind of get that luxury. And certainly that's not what we had. And then after that, it was kind of doing the miniatures and the score and things like that, getting all the special effects in. And then I had a bunch of what I call dessert shots, which are things that like I wanted to do from the very beginning. And so one of them is here. So including these guys, which, the flesh-eating fish was one of these dessert shots. And it's something that I both really wanted to do, but you get in that kind of creative mode where you want to like nothing but work on the film. And then when it comes time to do it, you're like, I will do anything except work on this film. And so that one of my tricks to like get started is I did this like I kind of locked in to the film, this chunk of time that would have to be covered by the flesh eating fish. And so, but this is like another classic, like Franken's ZED challenge. You're like, okay, we got to make this fish puppet. How do you do it? How do you bring it to life? How do you make it like look really cool? And you got to move fast. Like you have to move fast, because even though this film took 6 years, it's like you're sprinting the entire time, but then it's like, it's so fun. Like anytime you get started, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, you've been doing this. It's like, it's all you see it for. But then even here, like we only make like one half of the puppet. Right? Only make the kind of camera side. Although invariably, I think like this bit of the puppet is actually kind of here, kind of in the frame, just to see it a little bit. But yeah, it's like super fun. But like this is a plastic bag. That's all this is. That's been actually kind of cut and welded using what's called this plastic bag technique, which the Stan Winston School. I got to plug these guys. There's the Stan Winston School of Character Arts. Are just like absolutely incredible, and we're just an unbelievable resource for us, and we were able to take like a lot of their techniques and like really kind of run with it. And this is absolutely one, so you get this like really super fun kind of fish effect.
Yeah, actually the Stan Winston School is an incredible resource, like, because that's the thing. Like I think a ton of people are going to watch this movie and be like, if they love puppets or monsters, like, I could do this if I kind of take the time and then find that momentum. And they have so many plastic bag video ones, the ones where you like pull at them with water or air. It's so visceral, and compared to something like CGI, like it feels alive.
Yeah, it's really tactile. You get this kind of fluid dynamics. I mean, and that's one of the big things, like at every step of the way in Frank and Zed, I was always like, okay, how do I introduce like real nature into the film? So it's like fire and fog, real just trees, will kind of, fluid dynamics essentially to really kind of bring everything to life. But yeah, absolutely. Like anyone can make this kind of film. It's, you just gotta put in the time. I mean, I will say like there's still a lot of craft, so it's it's like anything. I mean, it's like anyone can play the piano or paint, or you could do all these kinds of craft. But I do think like, for Frank and Zed, like I wanted to tell this story with like monsters and castles. I didn't want to tell stories set in the world I live in a very different world. That's what I was very passionate about. And so, yeah, all these techniques, Stan Winston School is just a phenomenal resource. And there's lots of other places that you can kind of find how to do these things. And that's one of the things that I did is I said, okay, I can't afford CGI, like the storm in the film. We tried a CG storm. I have a very talented visual effects guy. He tried a CG storm, and I was like, this will never work. And I just thought to myself, I was like, man, when I see a CG storm, I mean, now they're very good. Yeah. But even 6 years ago when we were kind of looking at this, I see a CG storm. I was like, even that with like a massive budget, I'm not in love with. So it's like, okay, well, how can we take tools? How can we take some of the effects from like the 1980s? And so we did what's called a saltwater tank, where you take an aquarium and you fill the bottom half with a very heavy saturated salt solution. And then you very carefully put fresh water on the top. And that leaves this heavy salt water on the bottom and this fresh water on the top. And then if you squirt a liquid into it, it'll kind of stay above the salt water for a time. And that's how you get to do the salt, or that's how you do the storm effect. So like, that's how we did the storm in Frank and Zed. It's hard though. I mean, but it takes time. I mean, the setup is like 4 hours. You get one take per 4 hours. And the other thing that's hard is like, I'm doing this storm. You have to light something and you have to focus on something that's not there. So because it doesn't come out until the storm like actually manifests itself. So it's very labor intensive, but like I love that storm effect. I'm like very, very happy with how it came out. And that was just like me by myself. I did that whole thing completely like on my own, hitting record and then running back and like squirting the milk out to kind of get the effect. And it's really nature. It's those real kind of, fluid dynamics, like bringing it to life. I'm flashing all the lights and stuff. So that's all kind of real. and then the effects artist, Adam Sager from Sager Digital, he kind of places that in this other miniature where we're also doing all of these real-time effects and real fog. And I think it just goes a long way to kind of selling the effect and making it feel believable.
I think it's like absolutely beautiful, and it does, having that kind of organic feel like elevates things in a way that feels, it doesn't only feel like, it feels, I want to say like expensive, but it also feels like it is a real world, and that these characters, even the most minor ones, are living their own lives that are parallel to ours, and it just enriches that whole experience. It never takes you out of it because you believe that they're in that environment.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, taking people out, that was always like, I always imagine like the experience as this balloon that the audience has. We have this really precious balloon and we can't pop it. And if you see like a 2x4 or any kind of anachronism of just a shape or CG that's just hits you the wrong way, it kind of takes you out. And so that was like the goal of the film. And it was a lot of like what we can't do. Like that was like, there's so many things we can do, but lots of things like stylistically, I was like, we can't have any steampunk, like steampunk that like doesn't fit. So we got to do these gears, but they can't be steampunk. The effects, it's like, okay, it has to feel really organic. It has to have that kind of texture. One of my favorite examples is the God of Death in the opening. Because I was like, okay, I have to make this like all practical, like God of Death that's like actually scary to the best of my ability. And it's got to be like a puppet. And solving that problem was like a real challenge. It did like a lot of testing and trying to come up with a technique. But now I'm very, very proud. Like that, the demon guy with the green, that's not CG. It's like all practical. But it was really fun too to set that bar and be like, yeah, we're gonna like get our puppets and we're gonna try and scare people or like do something like really intense in the first little bit. And like, can we do it? It's like really fun. And then of course, if you fail, there's no doubt that you have failed, which I think is also, and we did plenty of that, and you just don't show that. Try not to show all the many failures to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, what I also find so fun and so like immersive about this movie is that it is so cinematic. Like it's so well shot, and it's so well, there's so much camera movement, and there's so much like it's very dynamic in the way it's constructed. I feel like you probably, and just considering all the work and all these practical effects, you were probably working a lot with storyboards and a lot of pre-planning. Do you kind of want to talk about how you brought that together with the actual puppetry and effects?
Yeah, so I'm thrilled that you saw the camera movement, because that's like really important to me, and you're one of the first people to actually kind of notice that, because I like a really active kind of controlled camera, which is a real challenge with puppets because it's a game of inches. I mean, you're like to here and then even to their elbows, and trying and always trying to like move the camera but keep it back. And so yeah, I do really extensive storyboarding. This is about, I don't know, this is maybe 15% of the film. Wow. And basically, I write everything longhand, and then you can actually see a little bit, I don't know if it's worth that, but these arrows here, that's how I show all the camera movement. And this shot actually got cut from the film, but this little squiggle here means that these are connected. So we start here, the camera comes out, and then we reveal, this was going to be the reveal of Zed eating a squirrel brain. But the whole film, yeah, it's just, let's see if I have any of my small storyboards. I don't, oh, here we go. So this is how the majority of the film was actually just done like this. Just these little storyboards, like the orgy of blood. And then basically the green is when the shot was done. So I just shoot it, but everything, also because the puppets are so small and everything is an effect. Like if a puppet picks something up, that's an effect. If a puppet does like this, that's an effect. And so you have to think ahead of time of all the different effects and then all the set. And so, and because it was like so labor intensive, the other thing I would do is like, not just shoot everything that was going to be in one scene at the same time, but everything that would be in one angle. So for instance, in the throne room, It's like, okay, when the camera's like off to the side, we're going to shoot all the stuff with the prince. Okay, get the other puppet in there. We're going to shoot all the stuff from the middle of the film. Okay, get the other puppet in there. We'll shoot everything from the end. Then we change the setup. And so really had to storyboard it out. And then when it got to the battle, it's like super tricky because first of all, there's like not enough stones to build the whole castle at the same time. So you have to shoot everything kind of going one way, right? And then, but it takes forever to like rebuild the castle. So you're kind of planning out all the stuff in terms of all the shots. You know, you get the shots from one way, but then also going like, okay, this puppet gets killed here. So if we kill and kind of going like, okay, well, I can kill the front of the puppet. So we'll see him totally shredded. And then next week when we do the reverses, I'll just have his back to camera and we'll be able to get away with that. So it's like super intense. And the whole time going like, man, I hope I didn't make a mistake because there's no coverage. You can't shoot coverage. You're shooting everything like this single camera, like super controlled setup. And so it's really like the whole film is just done to my storyboards. Like that's like I mean, for me, that was kind of the only way, especially with the resources I have. Because even doing that, you know, we'd only get like 10, 11 shots a day on a really good day. And so you just can't shoot any fat. And one of the things I'm really proud of is that, you know, I think like something like 98% of the setups are in the film. So you shoot, so it's kind of wonky. So you shoot, instead of a bunch of different setups, you do 20 takes. And that's what I would do. It's like you're doing 20 to 30 takes. And so you can't have any extra kind of versions of that stuff. But anyways, yeah, storyboard. And also storyboarding is like, you know, that's where I come up with like tons of jokes. So it's one of the things that I love, like the margins. I wish I had a better example here, but the margins frequently will be filled with like a little star and like a little A, and then go over here and like, hey, ooh, this joke, that joke, that thing, you know. But yeah, that's how it's done.
That's awesome, because I would like while I'm watching it, I'm like, especially considering like all the blood, right? Like and the fluids that you're getting sometimes on the puppets. I'm like, that seems like a nightmare. Like actually just logistically, because I know that you're kind of working on a more limited budget. You don't have like 30 of each of these puppets.
We have one, just one.
That's like crazy. No, that's wild.
Yeah, there's no multiples. And in fact, like one of the things, like I would always be mortified, but some of the crew would like actually celebrate, because like whenever a puppet got killed, there's no going back.
Yeah.
And one of the things when I was writing it, I was always like, if somebody or something is used up, it has to be used so there's no going back. So like you see the window, it's going to get destroyed in a way that we cannot repair it. Like that's what has to happen. If a puppet dies, it has to die in a way that you cannot repair it. Like that's the goal. So like I have Grog here. And he's about, you know, one of the better looking guys. Even him, you know, it's like, this is all paint.
Wow.
You know, we're gonna paint him up so that there's no going back. And we actually tried to make a duplicate of a couple puppets, but there's just so much character in them. They just don't. They look kind of like when you see like the very first episode of The Simpsons or something, and like Homer just like looks weird. You're like, what's going on with Homer? You're like, oh, this is the one that was on the Tracy Ullman show. That's why he looks so weird. Like that's kind of what they looked like. So, yeah. So it's just like, I mean, but that's a part of the fun. But yeah, but it becomes like it's so limiting. It's so limiting, you know. And yeah, and also like with the blood too. I could never get enough blood. Like never ever. And I only finally started to get enough blood when I went to the hardware store and I found this thing that you use to like empty your basement if it like floods like this.
Yeah, I had one of those. It's like,
yeah, it's boom, boom. And that's when we could finally, and I like clamped the end so it was like really spraying. And still, if you listen, I mean, I think there's some of it in the final outtakes. I'm almost always screaming like more blood, like just screaming at the person, and they're like pumping as fast as they can, and it's just like shooting everywhere. Yeah, we had a kiddie pool actually that a lot of times the puppeteers would sit in the kiddie pool because there was like so much of the blood. We need to just kind of contain it so it wouldn't flood the set.
I think this is a question from some of your fans, and I'm actually really curious too. So obviously there are so much character in these puppets. Like you kind of went into like the visuals of them, but there's also that extra level of like one, there's the puppeteering, the performance in that,
Mhm.
but also the voice. Can you talk a little bit about how all of these things kind of come together to create a character and how many people are potentially involved?
Yeah, so it's always a bit of a discovery. Like you find the puppet and you start to play with it and try and find the voice. We didn't um, we didn't have the ability to record scratch to actually record the audio while we were going because the camera moves and everything that's happening is so intricate. I'm actually calling out directions the entire time. Turn left, hand off right. I mean, it's really, and you're trying to do that without it seeming like super
Yeah.
cartoony. So the voices come in afterwards. And one of the things I found is that a lot of times you could discover like new aspects of the character and bring new inflection in that was like really, really fun. And so there was like kind of a whole other kind of layer of character work where we would get actors to come in and record the voices and kind of discover it. And the other thing that happened too is that the majority of the film was made with very few puppeteers doing all the different roles. So we also kind of bring in actors to kind of differentiate the characters and also voice actors who weren't puppeteers. So it's a lot of like working, finding somebody and then saying like, okay, where's the character? What can we do? What can we do? And sometimes it'd be really fun discoveries, like the baker. The lines that we originally had for the baker, when I was dubbed them in, they weren't really working. They were just like too on the nose. And then I said to the actor, I was like, I know for the baker, let's say he's a bachelor, right? And he has no idea why. Like, just make him super confident. Like when he's running from Frank, he's the fastest runner in the village. He's definitely going to be fine. There's no way he's going to be caught. And that just totally made the scene. And so that's the other really fun thing about the puppets is that there's an opportunity to actually amplify performance. Another like great example is Eben, the black character, who's is a phenomenal actor, Jerry Bell. And he's not a puppeteer, but he came in and did all this great stuff. And then he's doing the big scene where Eben kind of rips the zombies apart with his hands. And at the end, he's like, "Oh, this is gross," and he just said it. And it fit in perfectly with the mouth flap. And it's just something that he improvised, but we could actually kind of get it into the film. And I think it's like one of the best jokes. So it's just, so the characters becomes another chance to just layer in detail and layer stuff in and layer stuff in. And there's also lots of times too, where I would find like little mouth flaps, sometimes like accidental. And I was like, okay, how can we get a joke in there? Like Gramps, there's a bunch, like there's one in the very last shot, you can like barely hear it, but whoever's puppeteering Gramps was kind of out of frame a little bit, or their hand was just tired, so he's like this, and then when the camera comes, the actor's like, "Huh," and kind of brings Gramps up. And so then we dubbed in a line where Gramps is like, "Huh, oh, fell asleep," and it's just like so funny. And I think I don't know if you can even hear it like in the mix, but there's tons of jokes that we got to just kind of squeeze in after the fact. And a bunch that got cut too, unfortunately, that I just absolutely love. Like there's one of my favorites is like the quartet was when they're first walking into the castle. And the joke that got cut was one of them, you just see him and he kind of shivers and he goes, "Whoo, it's chilly in here." It's like such a, what I would call on set, like the perfect amount of dumb, just like so silly. And it's like so stupid, but like what someone might say, it might occur to them as they're marching into like this big battle, is that they're just a little bit cold. Anyway, so that's a long answer, but yeah, the voice is like a whole other journey of discovery. And it's like really fun to work with somebody and kind of go like, okay, we've done this. Like, what can we do to make it a little bit better? Where's it funnier? How can we make it funnier? Like, this is what we have. And it's all going to be to the mouth flaps, but you can kind of fudge that a little bit, so how can we kind of pump it up? But anyways, that's the answer.
Well, what I find super interesting as like I think like a lot of people who are like artists in any sense, like if you do watercolors or if you, I don't know, build houses in your spare time, you have this like great creative spirit where there's so much technical skill and organization in what you're doing, but to me, like, especially listening to you speak, what kind of stands out even more is that you use every limitation or every opportunity to be spontaneous and kind of to embrace creative opportunity. That might just be your personality, and that's amazing. But like, I'm wondering if you kind of have any kind of advice or input in how people can, on one hand, be like, okay, it's important to be organized, especially if you don't have all the time or all the money in the world, but still be very open to kind of happy accidents, creative, spontaneous moments, and kind of enriching and like feeding that creative spirit.
Yeah, I mean, I always say, like, you know, each of us are in possession of one of the most complex objects in the known universe, and that's our brain, right? And we just carry it around with us, you know, and it's an incredibly powerful tool. And if you just start to ask yourself, like, how can I? You just ask that question, how can I do this? How can I do that? It's just so powerful, and your brain will respond with an answer. One of the people who worked on the film with me, Jason Ropp, is my lead puppeteer, and he is just phenomenally talented at kind of taking a problem, saying like, okay, how can we solve it? How can we solve it? How can we solve it? And like a lot of times there'd be a build problem where you just like don't have enough fabric to cover like this, like a flesh fabric to like complete an arm. And you're like, what are we gonna do? You're like, well, just put a bracelet there. And so sometimes, and then that bracelet might end up looking really cool. And it's amazing how these problems that you take that moment and you wash over you and like, this is impossible. And we face that. I mean, I face that with every single shot on Frank and Zed, because I was like, I don't want it to repeat. So even if we got a technique down, it's like, how do we do it? So like the stained glass behind me, I really wanted, I was like, we got out of the castle and I was like, I don't want to see any rocks. The village needs to look different. Let's do stained glass. So I was like, let's do sugar stained glass. I always wanted to try that. So we made the sugar stained glass, we get it on set, and it starts melting like right away. We're like, it's just like, and we've got pins in between takes. We're like it's cut. It's like, everybody hold it up. Film, right, cut. We're doing that. So it's like, okay, we got to make stained glass, you know, for the rest. I really like the look. We can't do sugar stained glass. Like, how can we do it? And you start to ask yourself that question, and you'll come up with an answer. And so that's what I would say to anyone. It's like, if you want to do something, like, how can I? I mean, that's how that is the genesis of Frank and Zed. I was like, I want to make this monster movie. How can I do it? Like, I don't have money, and how can I do it? I don't know, maybe puppets. Like, that's the whole reason I came to puppets, is that I was making these live action films, and it wasn't working for me, you know? And I was like, and mainly because I didn't have the resources to get actors to and push them to do what I wanted to do. And that's not their fault. And it's not even my fault necessarily. It's just the reality. So I was like, what can I do? How can I solve this problem? And that's how I came to puppets. And so that's what I would say. It's like, yeah, just get started. Just start it, and you'll find out what you don't know. You'll find the problems, and then you say like, okay, how can I solve this one problem? You know, how can I, and that's like the reason, like all the storyboards, you know, like when I first took the battle to my crew, we had just finished 6 months of shooting, and they hadn't seen the battle yet. You know, we do like 11 storyboards a day on like a brutal, like pounding day, 11, and the battle's like 1,500 storyboards. Yeah, and that's like the face you're making now. I was like, they're gonna kill me. They are going to kill me. I was mortified. I was terrified of bringing them this battle. But they were like super cool. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's jump in. And like, it was no problem. But then I had to face like, oh my God, I have to do 1,500 storyboards. What am I going to do? But every day it's like, you just look at these and you're like, okay, how can I turn one of these green? How can I? And that's why, anyway, so that's what I would say to anybody. It's like, how can I like list everything you have to do? I want to do this big crazy thing, make a long list of everything you have to do, and then say, okay, which one of these can I turn green? And that's all. It's really that banal of a thing, you know. But that's I don't know. That's what worked for me.
Okay, so you know it does suck that you can't be at Fantasia with us this year. Hopefully you will be back in the future. But one of the cool things, which you've already shown off a lot of your stuff, is you can kind of do a show and tell. Do you have
Mhm.
anything else you wanted to show us before we kind of like wind down the interview that you might have lying around that might be interesting to people?
Yeah, I got all kinds of stuff. Okay, here was a fun one. This is Frank's heart.
Oh, I'm so obsessed with the heart. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So this is a real great example of like, how can I? So, I knew I wanted this like my cell phone's losing battery kind of effect with Frank.
Yeah.
And originally I was like, oh, we'll just do it all with sound. It'll be fine. And then I was like, no, and I just had to face reality. I was like, no, you got to see it. Because one of the mantras I came up with on the film, I was like, if you don't see it, it doesn't count. Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so this is like a classic challenge. It's like, okay, we've got to make a heart. How do you make a Franken heart? I don't know. How do you make this light thing or whatever? But yeah, so it's just this little, and you can kind of see some in the back here. And then the heart itself is here. And it was actually just a couple balloons like painted with latex.
Wow.
And then we just manipulate it with your hand. Because your hand is, I mean, you make a puppet film and the other thing you realize is just like what an incredible piece of machinery your hand is. There's so much dexterity, and it's just, I mean, and like the muscles for your hand are down here. Like most people don't even know that. I didn't know that. You don't even have muscles up here. They're way down here. Yeah, exactly. You don't even think about like what this thing can do until you try and make one, But yeah, so this is Frank's heart. And then again, to really kind of sell it and make it more fun, I put liquid in here so that the heart is moving around and you see that liquid sloshing. And then what I love about my main puppeteer, Jason, is that he's like not precious with anything. He's like really rough with it, which is it scares you to death when it's like Frank or Zed or like any of your puppets, but it's exactly what you want. It's like nothing is precious. And that's how we like make everything. It's like, are we going to make it super, super fancy, like put all of our work into it. And then we shoot it and film it and treat it as like, it's just nothing, as if it's just like boring. And you're just gonna, anyways. And so that's what he's doing with that heart. He's like, I was like, okay, Frank's having a heart attack. And I was like, you really charge him up. And Jason's like, bam, 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 bam. And I'm like, oh. It's so cool because you see this whole thing like shaking. And yeah, anyways, it's like, it's like really fun. It's so fun. And like also like a pain in the ass at the same time, Yeah, I don't know. What else do I want to show? What do we got here? I got one of the spiders. This guy we actually redid.
That's so cool. So
the first spider that came down didn't move. And that's one of the things I discovered is like, if it doesn't move, it doesn't, so watch. So look at the difference between this. Like here's spider number 1. That's a toy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's better. Right?
Yeah.
That's one step up. Here's even better.
Yeah.
So that's how you just kind of, and then the other thing we do is we cover it with goo and slime and shine it. And so that's how, and then also use like a cucaloris and break up the light. But that would be the evolution of a shot. 1, okay, that sucks. Bring it to life. 2, okay, how else can we bring it to life on another axis? 3, okay, then alter, kind of shake that up. 4, if we can have some fog going over here. 5, slime kind of on it. 6, camera move. 7, and that's how, always trying to build that illusion of life. Always trying to build that illusion of life.
That's awesome. I'm just, it's so cool just to like listen to the process of like how things kind of evolve from like an idea to kind of an inception and then just bring it to that next level. Like that seems so fun. Like it's like a almost like a game in a kind of way. It's like how far can you push things, right?
Oh yeah, it is like it's so like there's a shot, like I remember like a shot in the throne room where there's like a candle and they're doing this ceremony and stuff, right? And it's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we blew out the candle? And it is kind of fun because when it's a puppet, they can't do that stuff. So when you get them to do it, the idea is like a fun beat, and there is this extra kind of reward to doing it. we're like, all right, how the hell do we get this puppet to blow out the candle, right? This is a hand. And then I was like, oh, you know, I know, and I just told Jason, I was like, just blow it out from off camera. And it's like really that simple. He's just like, he does this, and at the perfect timing, he's just down here going, and you see the puppet blow out the candle, and people don't, like, you don't notice it, like, because we're doing everything. It's always like, hide the puppeteers, hide all the mechanisms. We're going to get all of it, you know, out of sight, because I think that's also like, I think that makes the world more real. And ultimately, even though that's more difficult, and when you fail, that failure is bigger. I'm like, that's what I want. And I think I think that's what the audience wants. And it also makes those things like so much more rewarding. Like anytime you can kind of, get that little stuff. Like another like fun one is like the brain, when this brain comes out on the tray, you know, and it's like, okay, here's one version of the brain coming out, right? But then what's in the film is it's like, okay, how do we make it so the brain is like wobbling like all over the place, and Frank is like barely kind of holding it on. And so I had the idea, what we did is we put like a little kind of chain on the bottom, a little rope on the bottom and of the brain, and then on the tray, so that it would kind of slide all the way around without falling off as he does it. And it's like that, those kinds of little things are like so, or like another one that was like really fun. Yeah, because you write all the shots and you're like, okay, how do we bring it up? Like when Zed first gets the human brain and he's got the tray and he's licking it, right? And Jason is like puppeteering at first the licks, and that's okay, but it's just like not, I was like, we got to be able to do this better. I was like, oh, I know. So what we did is in the shot, Jason holds up the tray and he's puppeteering Zed here, you know, camera's here. And then I'm back there with the tongue just on my hand, like going like this, kind of doing this big licks, so that it's like this huge, really exaggerated kind of thing. And when you get that dance, like when me and Jason kind of get it just right, so it's really sold, and then, you know, I go down here and then he does the tongue. And when you do it in a way where it's like, it takes it a little bit further, but the audience doesn't know that they've been tricked, it's so fun. It's and the characters feel like too. It's like you're there every step of the way, and you know it's like totally fixed. Oh, that's Zed. That's like more of that character. And I think that's another thing that's like, it's so awesome being like a human being, where you do this weird kind of fantasy thing and your brain can have that kind of the dual thing at the same time. You're like, no, Zed is real. All of these dolls are real. This castle is all, it's all very real. It's like, it's so fun. It's really fun.
That's awesome. So I would like to talk a little bit about like any kind of future projects you have, because like this is such like a monumental piece of work, but at the same time it's like, I'm sure that in the future you probably don't want to spend 6 or 7 years working on something.
Yes.
So do you have anything in the works, and if like what kind of support in general are you looking for? Like you have this amazing Kickstarter campaign, but like what's coming?
Doing a bunch of fun stuff. So I have another feature that I'm writing right now called The Gru, that I think I'm very likely to tackle next. It'll be about this one giant monster. So I'm working on that now. I really want to actually go back to the world of Frank and Zed, or the Frank and Zed universe, and explore some other monsters. Like I really want to meet like a family of werewolves, like in this universe. I would love to meet like kind of a creature from the Black Lagoon, kind of like a swampy kind of creature, you know, doing all of that stuff with puppets kind of in the same tone as like a series. I'm also writing a actual prequel for Frank and Zed, where we're going to learn the story of the people who actually ended up kind of sacrificing big chunks of their body to become Frank. And so I've got 2 of those written, and one of them may be out actually in its own kind of fun form by the time this interview drops. Yeah, I'm gonna hopefully actually finish writing it today. So just like lots of fun stuff. I mean, there's lots of stories that I want to tell. Dad? And yes, my love.
In my video, there's something called a falafel bowl, and I really want one.
Okay. Important update. So anyways, there's lots of. Yes, my love.
Not fluffables, fluffables.
Fluffables. Okay. I heard it as a falafel, and I was like, that's it.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, yeah, there's lots of stories that I want to tell, and kind of and it's just a matter of kind of saying like, okay, like how are we going to tell them? You know, what's the medium? Is it all going to be film? I have a play that I really, really want to do. That's like a horror play, you know. So I don't know, lots of stuff.
That's super cool. Thank you so much for speaking with me and Fantasia. I honestly think that people are going to go crazy for this movie. And for people who are watching this now who've watched Frank and Zed, share it online, share it with your friends. The festival, like you can watch it the whole festival. So like if you liked it, tell people and get them out there, right? Like that's how it works. Like a small indie film like this that's like handmade, like a labor of love. This is the kind of films we should be supporting. We need to be supporting. And that's the fabulous thing about Fantasia. You guys have a lot of power to do that. So go out and make, like, just share the love of the movie for people. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jesse.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I want to say like, it's getting a fan response or getting an email or contact or just reading online that somebody liked the film is so rewarding for me and my crew. And so I just really appreciate like all the people who are watching the film, supporting Fantasia, supporting Frank and Zed, and that kind of activism and kind of sharing is just like, it's pays off on so many different levels. So I just really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much one more time. And yeah, have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you everyone at Fantasia.